All right, on this episode of Bouts Talking Bouts, happy to have on Bill Mahood. He was gracious enough to welcome us to Champion Gym. How's your day going so far, man?
Man, it's sparring day. There's not a better day than sparring day. Sparring day is the best day.
It's a great attitude for sure, and I wanted to, get some insight on your, legacy here and everything like that. I was talking to the gym owner, and he was kind of saying that you sort of found out about the facility and then kind of, joined up after that. Like, what, prompted you to join this particular gym?
Well, I was living in Vancouver running the Big Revolution pro team for years. It got shut down. My wife's actually from this area, so she had a job opportunity up here. So we were like, hey, let's go to Grande Prairie. So we came up to Grande Prairie, and of course, the first thing I do is go look for somewhere to train. And back then, man, I was not a happy camper. I'm thinking, how am I going to live in this little town with nobody? I found Champions, and it was a nice, open, friendly environment, but they had really not a lot. There was a couple of guys who might have been beginner blue belt type level. So it was like, so we started kind of just coming to class. Next thing you know, I ended up teaching class, and 6.5 years later, we've built a hell of a great team. Raf's been incredible. He supports the team so much in the program, does everything we need to be able to facilitate, having some really good athletes, and now we're starting to see just some real success.
And you have a high profile as a competitor yourself. How important is it for you to impart your knowledge to the next generation and see them grow?
Yeah, it was funny because I started so long ago. I was starting almost as a coach at the same time as I was starting as a fighter because there was no fight gym. So I was living in Prince George. I was doing Hapkido and boxing, and the UFC started. So a bunch of us started watching this, and we're like, man, this is awesome stuff. So we started implementing what we saw on the first half a dozen UFCs. We brought actually Oleg Doktarov up to Prince George, like way back in the day. And he was doing some seminars, giving us some ideas. So we started our own Prince George Fight Club and started doing what was called NHB back then. So even back then when we started it, I was the coach. I'd go to Vegas for 10 days. I'd bring back what I learned. I would coach. So I've been coaching almost the same time as I was learning. So it's a weird thing. So I was able to train with some great places, great people, and now living here, I'm so addicted to the sport. Like these guys, they give me a reason to get up in the morning and come to train. I got a regular job now instead of just fighting, which is depressing. And this is my outlet. So without these guys, they're there who give me life.
And with nationals coming up and everything like that, you've got a heavy degree of involvement in that. For people who aren't familiar with nationals, can you sort of give them the rundown of everything?
Yeah, well, back in 2014, IMAF was created with International Mixed Martial Arts Federation with backing of the UFC. So it is an international body, non-profit body, that's basically going to amalgamate all of amateur MMA. So at this point now, fast forward 5 years later, we've got 58 countries. We're running not only world championships in Bahrain, but we're running European championships, we're running Pan-American championships, Asian championships, Europeans, Africans, Oceanias. So, the world is lighting up with amateur MMA. We're starting to see a lot of top-level people going and actually getting amateur careers. In boxing, it would be unheard of to go and have your first pro boxing fight with no amateur experience. So like Alex Martinez, my student, he did 2 world championships, pulled silver on both. He went pro as a 19-2 amateur. So you need that experience, and there's also a lot of guys who want to fight, who want to enjoy our sport, but they may never want to go pro. They might be smart enough to have degrees and real jobs and make real money, but fighting is something they love, and the amateur level gives you that opportunity to go to a high level. We're really working hard towards getting into the Olympics. So then you can have amateur athletes who could compete on the Olympic stage. They may never go pro, but the guys who do want to go pro will have a wealth of experience and be able to compete at an international stage for their country and then become a pro. This makes so much more sense.
There's a lot of exciting things happening within Champion Gym, Canadian MMA, and MMA as a whole. Really appreciate all the insights. Is there anything you want to add as a parting thought as we're wrapping things up here, man?
The big thing is I guess support your local. Everything is grassroots. MMA is weird because we started backwards. We started as a spectacle. We weren't even a sport. And then from a spectacle, we became kind of a sport. but it's at a professional level. And then we've slowly trickled backwards to now we have amateurs, we have grassroots, we have the small beginnings of a proper sport. So we've kind of gone it backwards. So if you live in a city and you've got a small fight card, man, go to it. Help your gym, help your fighters. If you own a business, sponsor a young guy. Like throw him a few $100 so he can, toil around as an amateur. Get involved. I mean, everyone loves to watch the guys at UFC, but they got to remember they got to come from somewhere. So if we help build them, you guys are just going to enjoy better people in the UFC down the road.
Absolutely true. Bill Mahood, live from Champion Gym. This is Bouts Talking Bouts.